Yeah, team, we're back. Another whiteboard session. This one's all about how to prepare for a performance review. This typically happens once a year. You want to have a strategy, walk into that meeting to get the rating you deserve, but more importantly, to get more money. We're going to talk about 4 things: gathering data, know your timing, how to prepare for the meeting, and then your mindset during the meeting. Let's jump in. All right, team, let's talk about gathering data. What does that mean? Throughout the year, you're working on so many different projects. You're partnering with several different stakeholders. You're getting things done. That's all data that you need to use in order to present that to your boss for why you deserve to be rated highly for your performance review. So data such as feedback from stakeholders, any shout outs you might get from the team. In product management, we do product announcements. So if I launch a new feature, I'm going to announce that via Slack or via email and tag all the different people that made it happen. If you're recognized by leadership for going above and beyond, and most importantly, the results. If you can point to something that you drove the revenue, you drove the profitability, capture all that data because that's what you need during your performance review. But here is the pro tip, team. The year flies by. You do so many different things that you don't remember. Create a folder within your Outlook email inbox. Every time someone gives you positive feedback, a shout out, announcements, send it to that folder. Send it to that folder throughout the year so that when your performance review happens, which typically is the beginning of the following year, you have an inbox full of documented wins that makes it clear you deserve a high rating. All right, let's talk about knowing your timing. Depending on the company, there might be an annual review or a quarterly review. Companies are now leaning more into a quarterly review because if I connect with you 4 times throughout the year, I can check in and get the data I need to see how you're trending as my employee, so there's no surprises at the end of the year. So ask your manager, what is the performance review cycle? Another thing to ask what is the promo cycle? When can I get a promotion at my job? Because that could vary from the performance review cycle. Like for example, say you have a performance review that's done at the beginning of every year. So January, middle of January, you start to collect the data and you go through that process. However, that same company might have promotion scheduled for April of that year. So after Q1, that's when they look at promotions. So ask your manager that so you can know how the game is played. What that feeds into is when you ask for a promotion or a raise, depending on how the company does their talent evaluations, there's typically a charter that needs to be created. Your boss has to put down all your wins, why Marcus deserves a promotion. They have to tell that story to senior executives to get more money for you. All right, team, now let's talk about preparing for the meeting. So you've gathered your data, you know the timing of when your performance review is going to happen, when is the promo cycle. Now when you think about the meeting itself, let's say the meeting is scheduled 4 weeks out. What do you do before that meeting? Here are a few things. First, have documented your top 5 wins. Over the last year, what are the 5 things you've done to impact the business, to partner with teams, to be a good collaborator? Have all of that documented before the meeting. Also, you should have your career goals. What's next for you? What do you want to do with this company? Do you want to become a manager? Do you want to build a team? Have your career goals clearly defined so you can talk about them during the meeting. The big thing I want to tell you, team, is make sure you do all the heavy lifting. Let's say your manager has 5 different direct reports. That means she has to do the same thing for 5 different people. If you can do some of the heavy lifting and document this and have it all the story there, you make her job easier because she's going to have to enter that information into an HR platform like Workday so that it's documented how you're performing. So do the heavy lifting for your boss by documenting your top 5 wins, your career goals, what you've done, and then prior to the meeting, send it out to her as a pre-read. Hey, I know we're touching base next Friday. Here's some of the information I've gathered about my performance over the last year. Send it out via email as a pre-read. If you do it right, that could be the data or the information she uses to input into Workday for your performance review. The last thing before the meeting, you have to do a self-evaluation. That's typically the first step in the performance review process, where they'll ask you, how do you think you performed? Here are the goals you had for the last year. How did you trend towards them? Did you achieve them? What are some of the things you learned? That's also something you have to do before the meeting. All All right, now let's talk about the last step, your mindset during the meeting. You've gathered the data, you know your timing, you prepared for the meeting. Now the meeting's on the calendar, you're walking in there tomorrow morning. Here's some strategy to be successful. First is make sure it's a conversation. This performance review meeting is not for you to have your folder with all your accomplishments the last year and read 1, 2, 3. No, that's not the goal. It should be a two-way dialogue between you and your manager about your career. Make sure you're willing to accept constructive criticism. You didn't do everything perfectly the last year, but position yourself as a lifelong learner, how you want to continue to grow with the company. Last thing I'll say is there's typically 3 ratings for performance review. Below expectations, meets expectations, and exceeds expectations. Obviously, the first one is you're not doing the job based on the responsibilities listed in the job description. Meets expectations means you are achieving the things that you should set out to do as that specific job title and those specific roles. Now, exceeding expectations when you're balling. You're going above and beyond. You're influencing at a high level. You're collaborating, and you're making an impact on the business. Now, it's hard to get that, but it's possible. I've been fortunate to achieve that in my career, and I was literally collaborating and having an enterprise-wide impact. The last thing, truly the last thing, is make sure you ask for documentation. Everything that's discussed in that meeting, make sure you ask your manager to follow up with it documented so you have a copy of that for your records to make sure that final performance review aligns to what you discussed. Hope this helps.